Coming up on Talking Points, an Afghan national who served along U.S. troops in Afghanistan shoots 2 National Guard members outside the White House. The latest details on the fatal incident ahead.
Plus, some universities compromise with the Trump administration to continue receiving federal funds. Hear which ones ahead.
And tensions rise in South America, what the president spoke about in his conversation with Venezuelan leader Nicolas Maduro. All that and more when Talking Points starts right now. President Trump is issuing a warning to avoid airspace over Venezuela. Good evening and welcome to Talking Points. I'm Ben Bascuk.
And I'm Alex Burstein. This announcement follows warnings of land attacks along the South American coast. Most recently, he took to Truth Social to say, quote, "To all airlines, pilots, drug dealers, and human traffickers, please consider the airspace above and surrounding Venezuela to be closed in its entirety."
President Trump confirmed he spoke with Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro over the weekend, but refrained from making any further comments amid increased scrutiny over military buildups and strikes in the Caribbean Sea.
I don't want to comment on it. The answer is yes.
And can you tell us a little bit about it?
No, I can't do that. I wouldn't say it went well or badly. It was a phone call, yeah.
Trump quickly denied rumors of an airstrike, telling reporters to, quote, "not think too much into it." This comes as Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth is in hot water for his actions in Venezuela. Hegseth ordered a second strike on the previously targeted boat, killing any survivors. Both sides of the aisle are accusing him of committing a war crime, and the Congressional Armed Services Committee says they will give it vicious oversight in the coming weeks.
Back at home, an investigation into the tragic shooting of 2 West Virginia National Guard members just blocks from the White House. Army Specialist Sarah Beckstorm was killed last Wednesday, but West Virginia Governor Patrick Morrisey says U.S. Air Force Staff Sergeant Andrew Wolf is making positive progress. Ethan Kraut joins us with the latest on his condition and the suspect. Ethan?
Yeah, guys, the 2 members of the West Virginia National Guard were in D.C. as part of President Trump's controversial deployment to help law enforcement. Now, according to city officials, the guardsmen were the victims of a targeted ambush just blocks away from the White House. Now, Trump spoke from his Mar-a-Lago Beach Club in Florida after the shooting, doubling down on the National Guard deployment.
They'd been deputized as part of the most successful public safety and national security mission in the history of our nation's capital. The D.C. Safe and Beautiful Task Force, which has achieved an unprecedented reduction in violent crime and crimes of all type.
Trump announced he will be deploying an additional 500 troops to D.C. in response to the shooting. The Department of Homeland Security named Ramanullah Lankanwal as the suspect and described him as, quote, "a criminal alien from Afghanistan." Lankanwal came to the U.S. in 2021 after the U.S. withdrawal from Afghanistan under Operation Ally Welcome. Now, the program took place during the Biden administration to help Afghans who cooperated with U.S. forces in Afghanistan. The CIA announced Lankanwal had worked with the agency in Afghanistan, where he was a member of the Zero Unit, an elite squad of Afghans who have faced immigration hardships in the U.S. since the end of the war. The shooting has led to the Trump administration raising new questions of the immigration and vetting process.
He was flown in by the Biden administration in September 2021. Nobody knew who was coming in. Nobody knew anything about it. His status was extended under legislation signed by President Biden, a disastrous president, the worst in the history of our country.
Well, Ethan, thanks for joining us here at the desk. Over the last 4 years, a lot of these Afghans making the move over to the U.S., and a lot of them helped the U.S. during the kind of turbulent time in the Middle East. But with this current suspect, What was kind of the vetting process to allowing him to come to the U.S.?
Yeah, you heard Trump there saying that he's blaming the Biden administration for messing up Cornwall's vetting process, but it's actually a more complicated situation than him just coming to the U.S. in 2021. As you mentioned, he was part of that zero unit with the CIA, which means he started his vetting process back in 2011 to start working with them. Now, after the U.S. withdrawal, he came back to the U.S. in 2021, where he had a vigorous vetting process by multiple U.S. agencies. And back in April of this year, under the Trump administration's Department of Homeland Security, he was granted permanent asylum.
Yeah, so I mean, vetted by the Biden administration, comes back and is now granted asylum in April by the Trump administration. But it opens this bigger question of violence in American cities in general. We know that Trump is sending the National Guard to cities around the country, including Washington, D.C. And an instance like this, especially from an Afghan national, from an immigrant, kind of justifies some of these claims that the Trump administration is putting forth and reasons behind putting the Guard in place. What are now the next actions from the administration when it comes to immigration policies from this justified action?
Yeah, the Trump administration is taking this moment as a way to continue their immigration crackdown on countries outside of just Afghanistan. Over the weekend, they released a list of 19 countries of concern that they're calling them, where they'll be re-interviewing some refugees admitted during the Biden administration. You see the 19 countries on your screen right now. They'll be re-interviewing these refugees. They're saying to make sure that there are no more people who slip through the cracks like this, like Lakanwa. Now, Trump, while he was speaking at Mar-a-Lago in that speech we just listened to, he said that he'll be, quote, permanently pausing immigration from all third world countries. We have a little more that he said. Take a listen.
We're not going to put up with these kind of assaults on law and order by people who shouldn't even be in our country. We must now re-examine every single alien who has entered our country from Afghanistan under Biden, and we must take all necessary measures to ensure the removal of any alien from any country.
Now, with this, all asylum decisions have been paused by the Trump administration, and they're suspending all immigration requests from any Afghanis, and there'll be no more visas issued to any Afghans with Afghan passports, which are impacting people who are in the U.S. right now.
Definitely interesting. I mean, a very broad-reaching immigration policy and push now extending to people who are just kind of in the pending process of getting visas that have already been printed that are to be handed out. The Trump administration is pausing that and saying, hey, we're reviewing everything that happened under the Biden administration following kind of this evacuation out of Kabul and this kind of pull out of Afghanistan that Republicans claim was disastrous.
And I think it's really key to look at. This is now applying to refugees too, not just immigrants, because a lot of these people are fleeing dangerous situations in these countries. And when you're dealing with these refugees, it's much, much smaller margins.
Yeah, definitely something that we're going to keep an eye on when it comes to immigration policies. Thank you so much, Ethan, for joining us. Well, Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer announced earlier today that several of his New York offices have faced bomb threats, with the messages referencing a claim that the 2020 election was rigged.
Schumer confirmed that his offices in Rochester, Binghamton, and Long Island received the threats with the subject line, quote, MAGA. Schumer spoke in response on the Senate floor.
As I've said many times, these kinds of violent threats have absolutely no place in our political system. No one, no public servant, no staffer, no constituent, no citizen should ever be targeted for simply doing their job.
Department of Homeland Security agents are expected to enter New Orleans this week. This is the latest Democrat-led city to be targeted by immigration enforcement crackdowns. The operation is expected to start this week. Top Border Patrol official Gregory Bovino will be joined by 250 Department of Homeland Security agents.
President Trump previously hinted at the decision, saying New Orleans has a, quote, crime problem. Immigrants make up just 6% of the city's population, with reported crime down over 20% from 2 years ago. Still, the city faces one of the highest violent crime and homicide rates in the country. Newly elected council member Matthew Willard says there was a, quote, mass chaos and confusion, and few details shared with city officials. After the break, some universities make deals with the government to get federal funding back. Stay with us.
Yo, camping buddy. Ready? Dude, I thought you were driving.
I thought you were driving.
Oh, I never said I was driving.
I definitely can't drive.
Okay.
If you're high, just don't drive. It's illegal everywhere. If you feel different, you drive different.
Welcome back to Talking Points. Minnesota Governor Tim Walz is under fire by President Trump for alleged fraud in Minnesota. The Justice Department is announcing new charges against the Feeding Our Future scheme, which prosecutors say involves more than $250 million in stolen funds from a federally funded child nutrition program. Many individuals in Minnesota's Somali community are charged with making small fortunes by setting up companies that build state agencies for millions of dollars worth of social services that they never provided.
Trump said in the Truth Social post that he would be ending the temporary protected status for Somalis in Minnesota, citing, quote, fraudulent money laundering activity. He also used a slur for people with intellectual disabilities to describe the governor. Walz responded on Meet the Press yesterday.
As both as an educator for a couple decades and as a parent, using that term is just so damaging. It's hurtful. We have fought 3 decades to get this out of our schools. Kids know better than to use it. But look, this is what Donald Trump has done. He's normalized this type of hateful behavior.
Northwestern is agreeing to pay $75 million as part of a deal to restore federal research funding frozen by the Trump administration in April. We bring in Boone to break down the end of a 7-month battle over hundreds of millions in federal aid. Boone?
Thanks, Ben. It is the 6th major university to strike a bargain with the government to restore federal funding, and the 2nd largest payout among those deals. Other parts of the deal included the federal government agreeing to end 3 separate investigations without any acknowledgement of wrongdoing by the university. Interim President Henry Bienen released a statement on the deal.
I would not have signed anything that would have given the federal government any say in who we hire, what they teach, who we admit, or what they study. If our frozen federal research funding had continued, it threatens to gut our labs, drive away faculty, and set back entire fields of discovery.
The agreement also requires the university to revise policy around gender-affirming care and mandates the university revoke the Deering Meadow Agreement, which it signed in response to student encampments protesting the Gaza war, which reserved 5 undergraduate scholarships and 2 visiting faculty slots for Palestinians. This deal comes as the Department of Education signed the interagency agreements in November, transferring certain responsibilities to other government agencies in what many experts believe to be the first step in dissolving the agency as a whole. Secretary of Education Linda McMahon spoke about this process during a CBS interview.
What we're doing is it's almost like contracting, with the agencies. We've already signed one. They're called interagency agreements with the Department of Labor. We did that a few weeks ago.
Well, you hear there some kind of words about what this could mean, the dismantling of the education department, something that the Trump administration has teased for a while now. But what would these changes actually mean to education in America?
Well, the important thing to note here, before anything, is what the Department of Education was founded for. It was founded by Jimmy Carter in '79. to enforce what we saw during integration, right, and really make sure that those changes were implemented in the South. So the Department of Education doesn't really set funding. The lion's share of funding comes from the states, and it doesn't really set curriculum either. But what it does do is it enforces race, gender, disability issues, and it ensures that the laws attached to them are being followed. So when you cut a department like this, it really leaves out a lot of the students that benefit from those laws.
Like you said, Boone, funding mainly reserved for the states. Education is a reserve power for the states. We have this federal department, and there's kind of this drive by the Trump administration to drive out what they call wokeness, right? These things that you're talking about, race, gender, ideology. Are the changes at the education department going to accomplish that?
Well, Ben, Trump's goals here in education are kind of threefold. First of all, yes, like you said, he wants to get rid of these DEI initiatives. But also, he's made much of this one tagline that the United States spends, the top in the world in education, but ranks usually around 33. And that's not entirely untrue. But it's not because of too much centralization. It's actually because of too much decentralization. You have a very diverse student body in the United States, and you have a lot of these districts that are very much underfunded. So it will absolutely meet his goals of ending DEI. As I said before, this institution, this organization, this government agency, they absolutely are in charge of ensuring that these laws are followed and that these students' needs are met. But in terms of raising the quality of the United States and how we do in our test scores, not so much.
And then Boone, obviously still a lot left to play. Congress would have to be the one that officially dismantles the department. But say some of these interagency agreements do come to fruition and the Trump administration decides to go through with them, what would be coming up next?
Well, so far we've kind of seen the Trump administration bite at the Department of Education a little bit by bit by bit. We saw back in during the Doge days where about half of all Department of Education workers were laid off, and now we see this move to move those responsibilities to other agencies. So it's piecemeal, right? Now it's interesting. The idea of this move being passed in the Senate is not entirely far-fetched. We saw during the shutdown that there were some breakers on the Democratic Party, and this issue has fallen down party lines, at least in the Supreme Court. However, there was a decision in the House last year, and that saw 60 Republicans vote against. So it's not realistic that it could pass the Senate, but there is a chance. But until that chance comes to fruition, Donald Trump can't totally dissolve the Department of Education. He can only weaken it.
Yeah, you talk about decentralization. I mean, Republicans proposing charter schools, private institutions, Democrats speaking out against that. We have the No Child Left Behind affecting those test scores. So definitely complicated issue that we're going to keep a close eye on going forward. Boone, thank you so much for joining us. But still ahead, negotiations between U.S. and Ukraine surrounding Trump's peace plan continue. What Zelensky's message was when we return.
Fancy pants peanut butter? A big screen television. You haven't even bought a sofa yet. A motorcycle? When your father finds out, he's gonna flip his shoes with 2 buckles? What do you even need 2 buckles for? Mr. Big Shot, buying whiskey shots for everybody in the bar. From the looks of it, I'd say nobody even remembers. Feed the pig.
Hi, my name is Sadie Miller.
My name is Luke Brady. I go by St. Luke.
So this one I started with this guitar lick.
Welcome back to talking points. Special envoy for President Trump, Steve Witkoff, is expected to meet Russian President Vladimir Putin in Moscow tomorrow, while Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky revises the U.S. peace plan. Emma Poper joins us with the latest on the nearly 4-year war. Emma?
Thanks, Ben. The peace plan is, quote, a process. It's not over yet, says President Zelensky. Right now, the most complicated part of negotiations seems to be the control over Ukrainian territories. President Trump's peace plan became public last month, creating alarm in the international community. The plan too heavily favored Moscow. The plan was revised last week in Geneva following talks between the U.S. and Ukraine. Today, President Zelensky turned to Europe, meeting with French President Emmanuel Macron in Paris. At the meeting, Macron reaffirmed Europe's commitment to supporting Ukraine and stressed that only Kiev can make decisions about whether to cede territory to Russia. The French president saying, Ukraine is the only one that can talk about territories. It's about its own territories, recognized by international law and sovereign. When we talk about security guarantees, these cannot be talked about or negotiated if Ukrainians, the owners of the territories, are not around the table. This all comes as one of President Zelensky's chief of staff has resigned following an anti-corruption agency's raid on his home. The resignation was announced by Zelensky on Friday and has the potential to complicate Ukraine's position in peace talks with the U.S. Here is what President Trump had to say yesterday about the corruption scandal and future peace talks.
Ukraine's got some difficult little problems. They have some difficult problems, but I think Russia would like to see it end, and I know Ukraine would like to see it end. We have a corruption situation going on, which is not helpful.
And is that
Yeah, but the president kind of playing this back and forth with Ukraine, especially when it comes to this corruption scandal. What's next for the country, for Zelensky, as the scandal kind of affects their opportunities to reach that peace deal with Russia?
The scandal has been widespread, taking down 2 of Zelensky's ministers and a former business associate from his days in the entertainment industry. The latest development is especially close to home, given Andrei Yermak, the former chief of staff's elevation to the top of Ukraine's negotiation team. Right now, it is unclear who will take Yermak's position in the coming rounds of negotiations. Amongst Ukrainians, the downfall of Zelensky's right-hand man will likely be favorable. He became a highly unpopular figure in recent years. Right now, Zelensky has framed the resignation as a chance to reset his administration in a positive way. But we'll have to wait and see who will be there to continue peace talks with Russia and the U.S.
And Emma, going back to this peace deal, which seems to kind of be changing every single moment for the last 4 years, what parts does the old peace plan contain, and how has that kind of changed in the last week?
Yeah, Alex, the old peace plan was highly favorable of the Kremlin and received criticism on an international scale. The demand echoed much of Russia's demands since 2022, requiring Ukraine withdraw from territory, shrink its army, and forgo any potential NATO membership. The revised version of the plan is not clear and has not been released by U.S. officials. However, we do know that contentious points like an agreed border between Russia and Ukraine and NATO membership have been left on the table for further consideration. Right now, Russia and Ukraine are in critical positions with the potential to end the devastating 4-year war between the countries. The outcome of discussion remains unclear still.
Yeah, opponents of this plan saying that this plan looks like it came right out of the Kremlin itself. A lot of these things you talk about, like NATO, left on the table. What are the odds that Ukraine actually accepts this plan, having the president just consulted them kind of in the final hour before forming it?
Yeah, I mean, Ukraine is liking the new revisions to the plan that were made in Geneva, but it is unclear, however, if Russia will agree to any of these kind of decision-making. Russia really has a maximalist agenda. It's kind of all or nothing in this war, or they're going to continue it. So we'll have to see if this all or nothing deal works for Russia and Ukraine, and if someone is going to succeed.
Thanks so much, Emma. Well, staying international, at least 146 people are dead after a fire that tore through Hong Kong last week. 150 people are missing and nearly another 100 injured. Officials say building contractors covered the structure with unsafe netting and tried to hide the material to fool inspectors. They installed proper netting at the base of the scaffolding where samples are taken. Residents tried to warn officials about the hazards for over a year. In a move to suppress speech, officials invoked a new national security law cautioning Chinese citizens not to turn the tragedy into criticism of the government.
Back to the Americas, President Trump announced he plans to grant a, quote, full and complete pardon to former Honduras President Juan Orlando Hernandez. This would erase a major U.S. drug trafficking conviction for a one-time U.S. ally that is currently serving a 45-year federal prison sentence. Prosecutors accused Hernandez of conspiring with drug cartels as they moved more than 400 tons of cocaine towards the United States. In exchange, prosecutors say Hernandez received millions of dollars in bribes that he used to fuel his rise in Honduran politics. This announcement follows a post by Trump on Truth Social strongly backing conservative National Party president candidate Nasri Tito Asfura. Honduras will hold its general elections this Sunday. Just ahead, the Trump administration is decking the halls with garland, lights, and lots of trees. See the decor after a quick break.
I see you mobbing over her. Let's go. Let's mob. Let's crawl. Let's crawl. Let's crawl. Hey, yo, we mobbing. Come on, girl. Let's crawl. Hey, yo, let's crawl. Hey, yo, let's crawl. Let's crawl. Hey, yo, let's crawl.
It's beginning to look a lot like Christmas at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue after 25,000 feet of ribbon, 120 pounds of gingerbread, and a 6,000-piece Lego portrait of President Trump. First Lady Melania Trump is decking the halls. The White House theme for the Trump administration's fifth holiday season, home is where the heart is, Alex.
I was hoping you would sing it. That sounded
Did you like
great.
That?
Yeah,
Thank
that
you.
was great. After a 3-month hiatus due to the demolition of the East Wing, tours of the People's House will reopen to the public tomorrow. In past years, guests have entered through the East Wing and walked along the East Colonnade. With the space under construction this year for the president's new ballroom, visitors will enter through the White House's front doors. The First Lady has been criticized in the past regarding her obligation to decorate for Christmas.
Christmas stuff that, who gives a about Christmas stuff and decoration, but I need to do it, right?
Yeah, but
correct?
Alex, what did they say about the Grinch heart 2 sides? That was 2018. Her heart maybe grew 3 sizes larger, right?
Well, if you look at these decorations now, I mean, this is going all out. They have Lego decorations, trees. And look at this. I mean, it's Christmas trees everywhere.
There's the White House. That's the main one in the blue room, the White House Christmas tree. Yeah. No, they really did go all out this year. It's going to look a little different. Finally, tours kind of reopening. The East Wing construction going forward. We saw new blueprints come out for that shiny new ballroom that the president's constructing there in D.C.
I mean, I know you're off to D.C. next month. Maybe you can go and see all
these
decorations.
Take a little visit. I'll take a little selfie with the Lego portrait.
And Trump portrait.
There he is right there. See that? Right next to each other. It is his favorite president. That's what he says. But see, First Lady Melania Trump still doing her job, still making the White House pretty, the People's House as it should be. So
I mean, it's good to see a little bit of growth in your Christmas spirit. I mean, that's an American holiday, and all the holiday season, it's just a big change from what we saw 6 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, lots of things have changed with this administration. Lots of traditions have changed with this administration. One thing that hasn't faltered is kind of the White House Christmas. We saw it with Joe Biden. We saw it with First Lady Melania Trump. It's a nice way kind of to add some humanity to the executive office, for sure.
I will say, not a lot of color, though. It's very white and green. You don't see as much as red and blue. There is a little
Reminds me of that hallway that they had, 2 years ago, that people said it looked like Nightmare Before Christmas with the white trees. But see, you take a lesson, you live and you learn. We got the blue butterflies, some color in there for sure. Well, this will be the last and final episode for this semester of Talking Points. Big thanks to our executive producer, Marguerite Bellotti, our news director, Luke Welsh, and wonderful to anchor, with always, you, Alex.
You as well, Ben.
Well, that's all the time we have for you. Be sure to follow us on Twitter and Instagram at CitrusTV News. For the last time, I'm Ben Bascuk.
And I'm Alex Burstein. We'll talk to you in January, but until then, have a great holiday season and a great night, Syracuse.